I mean, recently I went back to some 29 to 42 layer pieces that I made over a year ago, and they're really difficult. And so I make pieces, I make a cup, say, in layers of different colored porcelains, and then I carve away at them or shave away at them when they're that thin of layers. So that was something that was really exciting that I did lately. Sean Forrest Roberts, forestceramic.com.
And what do you make?
I make colored porcelain functional wares mostly.
It's Mighty Creative. I'm Kim Worker. We're going to begin each new episode hearing from an artist or maker talking about a project they've recently made that they were like obsessed with or just had to put everything else aside because they had to get this one thing done. We just heard from Sean Forrest Roberts, who is a ceramic artist and maker from Washington State. I met all of these makers that you're going to hear from this season at an event called Camp Thundercraft, which is a weekend retreat at a legit summer camp on Vashon Island outside of Seattle, Washington. It's held every spring by the organizers of the Urban Craft Uprising craft fair, and it's one of my favorite kind of conferences / retreats to go to because it's camp, and that's just amazing. But also everybody is just incredibly friendly, and everybody is a small creative business owner who is excited about doing the work to make their business a success. So I spoke to a variety of people at the 2019 Camp Thundercraft, and we'll be hearing from them throughout the season. Today, I want to talk about a particular kind of procrastination. Like, why put it off, right? Anyway, I crack myself up. I don't know if I've coined this kind of procrastination, this term that I'm going to talk about, or if other people have been talking loads about it. Probably there's books about it that I've just never heard of or read. But the particular thing I've been thinking about, I've been calling prerequisite procrastination. This came up in a conversation we were having in the online community, and we were talking about things that we put off doing because we have set rules or expectations for ourselves to have accomplished other things first. This is right where the prerequisite thing comes in. Sort of I will begin that project after after I've cleaned up my workspace or finished 3 other projects or completed some number of tasks or a kind of task or whatever. And it's like a special kind of procrastination because it's not just the kind of wholesale putting off of something for some maybe emotional reason or whatever. It's sort of, it's almost like we're tricking ourselves into thinking we're being rational by putting it off. No. It makes sense that I'm not starting this project I'm really excited about because it's not like I'm afraid that I'll get the project wrong, or it's not that, I'm so excited about it, I'm concerned that it'll be a disappointment. No. It's nothing so irrational as an emotional thing like that. It's totally rational. It's that, I certainly shouldn't be starting something new when I've got so many other projects on the go, or I certainly should be making time for this new exciting thing by, getting these other things off my plate first, or, this thing just isn't as much of a priority to me as say my family or my work or other obligations that I have. So I better get all of those things done first before I get to this new thing. And it's a very special kind of game we play with ourselves. Honestly, I think that it's neat to think about it in this way because it is a little bit different because we think that we're being productive. It's sort of making us feel like we would have some kind of virtue. We're putting this thing off because we're not ready for some reason or another. Like a math professor saying, well, you can't take my advanced calculus course until you've obviously done the regular calculus course, or right? Something like that. Except in our creative lives, it's not like that. Right? Sometimes we get super excited about a project in some kind of craft or involving some technique we've never done before. And sure, we could say well, I really want to knit this like intarsia colorwork sweater, but I've never done intarsia before. So I better find out when my local yarn store is teaching a class next on that technique, and I'll start the project another time. Like, honestly, we can find someone to teach us, or we can pick up a book at the library about it, or we can find an online class, or we can resort to the frustrating rabbit hole of learning knitting on YouTube. Like, we can do any of those things. We're just deciding not to. We're putting a barrier in place. And this goes for anything, when really you could like choose your colors of yarn and sit down with them and learn this technique as you go. You could totally do that. You can do that with anything at all. And so I want to hear from you. When's the last time you set prerequisites for yourself, but you're not actually your own university professor? Like, you don't have to create hoops to jump through before you do stuff you want to do. So, I want to say hit reply, which is pretty funny because there's no hitting reply in a podcast, Kim. This is not a newsletter. But like, come over to the blog at kimworker.com. You'll find the episode for this there. You'll also just find my email address or whatever. But like, let me know, like, what's a time that you were like prerequisite procrastinating, when you were like, there was a project you wanted to do or finish or whatever, or work on, and you created all kinds of reasons not to, because you had to do other things first, or you had to attain some level of expertise first, or you needed to do whatever. And so let me kind of wrap up by saying this, like, you do not need to be an expert in anything creative in order to embark upon doing that creative thing. You just don't. One of the amazing luxuries of finding even 5 minutes in our day to do something that is purely out of a creative expression is that it doesn't matter if we do it well. It doesn't matter if we know what we're doing. All that matters is that we get out what we need to get out. That's valid. That's important. And so that's why I'm saying, like, even if it's just 5 minutes in a day, it's important to spend those 5 minutes getting this creative stuff out. Like, you can't see me right now, but I'm literally flapping my hands as I say this. Get it out. Like, do it. You know what? If you can spend 3 hours, wonderful. Then you can really get into learning the stuff that you need or want to learn to do whatever it is you're making well. But it doesn't have to be done well. It just has to be done at all. And since we're talking about procrastination, I will say, screw getting it done. It just has to get started. Worry about getting it done another time. But I was going to say hit reply again. That's just going to be a thing. Hit reply however you can, however you want to, and tell me about a time that you prerequisite procrastinated, when you like created all of these things, these boxes you needed to tick off, these requirements you needed to fulfill before getting started on a project. Also tell me if you ever did get started on that project. And I will tell you, the reason I was really excited to talk about this particular topic today is because I totally prerequisite procrastinated this podcast. Also, it's really hard to say prerequisite procrastination, which is why you're going to hear me be like, take a beat. Prerequisite procrastination. Anyway, I did that with this podcast because I stopped doing a podcast in 2017. So we're talking almost 3 years ago. I loved it so much, but I had set it up in a format that required a ton of time. And it was driving me crazy. And I had set the bar so high to get things done according to this kind of very involved process that I stopped being able to accommodate the time. And then I spent 3 years saying, well, I'll bring the podcast back again when I ticked off certain kinds of boxes, when I had enough support on Patreon to quote unquote pay for the podcast, like to pay for my time, to make it worth my time, to make this fit into my work well enough to create an asset for my business rather than just something I really enjoy doing that's not actually helping me make any money. And I ticked off all of these things. And in the end, I waited 3 years and never hit those boxes. I set the bar way too high. And anyway, what I was doing was putting things in the way of me actually just doing this. So here we are together, understanding that we all procrastinate, understanding that we'll feel better about ourselves and what we do, and more in tune and in touch with our creativity when we stop doing that. So lest you think that I'm just sitting here in my little cluttered studio speaking into a microphone about all of these things that I never do. No, I do them. And right now you are listening to the result of me taking all of those prerequisites, shredding them into little pieces with my fingertips and tossing them over my arms like confetti. And now I need to vacuum. So I'll see you next time. Do hit reply. You'll find show notes and a recording of this podcast at kimworker.com. There'll be a little section on the website called podcasts, so it'll be easy to find. You can subscribe to this podcast, and I encourage you to in any kind of podcast listening app you prefer. Just do a search for Mighty Creative or my name, Kim Worker. It's Werker. And I encourage you to tell your friends about this. We're going to keep things nice and short, so it will be not time consuming for you to listen. And I'm hoping to give you something to think about and something that will inspire you to go do that thing that you've been putting off, because there is no good prerequisite. So talk to you soon. Bye-bye.